Hello everyone, my name is
Anna,
Julia,
Linda,
Marieva,
Madalena,
Lazar.
and we are DYouth.
Are you high? Are you low? Hang on there, you aren't alone. Here we come, here we go, the youth around the globe.
DYouth welcomes you to the new episode of the Diabetes Daily podcast. Enjoy! Welcome. Please tell me something about yourself.
Hi everyone, and thank you for being here and for listening this episode. I'm Ricardo. I'm Portuguese. I'm 26 years old, and I live with diabetes type 1, like many of you, for almost 14 years now, or a little bit more than 14 years. It's definitely has its ups and downs, and I think it's a different experience for everyone. So obviously you have a different experience than me, but it definitely has taught me a lot during these years, and something that has positively impacted my personal life as well. I'm currently working in technology. I'm working in a startup, and diabetes makes us get certain values and certain perspectives that you can carry to your personal and professional life. So my first message here is always see it as a positive thing and try to understand how it impacts you, not only on the obstacles, but also on what it has contributed for your growth and what you can take from it in your life.
How was your diagnosis? How do you feel about it now, and how far did this change?
So going back and way back, 14 years back to my diagnosis, I, like many of the people that listen to this episode and also are interested in learning more about diabetes, I was caught a bit unaware. I think, and many agree, that the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues that we have with diabetes, is the lack of awareness. And it's not only for the condition, but also for the symptoms and how to actually diagnose diabetes on a very early stage or early age. So it was a bit of a shock. I went from being a normal person, let's say it. Normal is definitely not the objective, the adjective here, but I went from having this normal life to having this new life in a matter of, I don't know, hours. So I was young. I had 12. I was 12 years old at the time, and I basically was at this stage where I was getting these symptoms, right? So I was getting very tired. I was getting this thirst. I was getting this just overall lack of energy and motivation. Obviously, this happens in a lot of conditions and a lot of situations. It doesn't need to be health. It can be also just life itself. But after being in a period of roughly 1 month feeling these symptoms and not feeling the best, I actually had an appointment with a doctor, and I can remember this crystal clear. It's a good memory out of the sadness that it involves. So it was my best friend's birthday at that day, and we had this little party and everything. And I remember just eating half the cake. Probably not the best choice nor decision. But after this party, I actually went to the appointment that I had booked, and yeah, it was crystal clear that you have diabetes. So after that, the doctor just asked my mom, "Do you want to go home and have him take a shower, or do you want to go straight to the hospital because he needs to go to the hospital?" And yeah, after that, it's basically history, right? So I was diagnosed. I spent 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital. I think that's the roughest memory I have living with diabetes. So that's actually the lowest point I had. I feel like from the acceptance journey starts somewhere. It didn't start there for sure. I think that was still going down and hitting the rock bottom. Obviously, there's a lot of feelings, right? The feelings of why me, and how can I handle this, and what's life after this. Also, it was in a different context, right? Today we have the means, we have information, we have these types of initiatives, which I congratulate to the team. But back then, it's just a black box. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what's next. And I feel the sadness and the frustration and actually this lack of willing to live comes from this unawareness or this I don't know what's next. So yeah, I think that's the main key the key message that I take. It was definitely not a beautiful moment or a good moment, but like I said, the journey of acceptance is different for everyone and it starts at different times. Mine didn't start there, but looking back, I understand what I felt and it's valid, and we all have valid feelings. But yeah, it's definitely a story that looking back today, I feel today I accept the condition. I live with it. I actually promote it. I work with it. I use it to connect with people. And yeah, back then it was, I guess, the end, or it was almost like the end. And today is just the beginning.
What scared you the most at first with your diabetes?
That's a great question. I think it's interesting that today I'm more afraid of diabetes than I was when I started, right? So I was sadder when I started. I'm happier today, but I'm also more afraid of it today. I think the biggest change was I am 12 at the time and I get a pen or two pens and they say, hey, this is a pen, you need to keep it at all time, and if you don't use it or use it incorrectly, you might die, or it might just make your life very difficult in, I don't know, 30 years or something. And you are 12, so you're like, I want to play Pokemon, or I want to play whatever game you have at a time. It's like, yeah, I can die and I just get another life, but life is not Super Mario, right? So it was a bit rough then. I actually got a lot of acceptance. I think the social acceptance was good. My colleagues actually did an effort to make me feel welcomed, and let's go to McDonald's. Let's not joke about this guy being eating a salad, because that's what you do when you are diagnosed in 2009. It's basically, hey, you do no sugar everything, salads at McDonald's, and yeah, that was life back then. Today, it's inconceivable for me to actually do those things unless I want to, but it was actually medical guidance. So that's the saddest thing. I think it's the saddest thing to look back and to think that my life could have actually been quite limited because of the directions that I was given. But today I'm actually more afraid of it. So I was never afraid of having low blood sugars. Actually, it was a good event. It's like, let's trip, I guess, and let's go to the pantry and get out the cookies. And yeah, it's one or two less units to give. I don't know. It's a crazy feeling. And today it's, oh, I hate being low. I actually might pass out. What a social embarrassment it will be. So I guess it's yeah, it's quite hard to look back, and I don't know. I think we live in a different world. Technology has brought us that world. We are now connected. We are now on top of things, and yeah, it's amazing how far we've come.
What barriers do you feel diabetes has created in your life?
That's a good question as well. I think, well, there are going to be all good questions. So the biggest barrier right now, I think, it's mobility. It's the mobility of mind and of body. Of mind, because no matter where we go, we are still thinking about diabetes, right? So no matter where we work, what we do for a living, and thankfully I have a desk job, but people that actually work in the field, it's even harder. But yes, I need to do these complex calculations. I need to do these hard documents, but that's just this. And then this is the rest of your head with diabetes. So I actually need to think about the insulin I gave at lunch, because I might go low, might go high. And if I go high, I'm tired. If I go low, I'm tired. And if I don't like to work, I'm tired as well. So there's really no motivation to work. And on the other side, it's the limitation of the body, right? We all like to travel somehow to a certain degree. One more like it more than others, but when you travel, you need to actually be aware of a couple of things: food, housing, access to health. And the reality is that in a ever changing or ever growing global world, it's quite hard to guarantee all of these things. So if you go to Spain, for us as a Portuguese, we actually know a bit the place, but even if you go to a restaurant, it's a totally different thing. If you experiment going to the border and just walking or driving 10 kilometers into the country, into Spain, you won't find the same menus that you find here. So the preparation, the units, the calculations, all the standard things that you've done and that you've lived with and grew with, they are gone. And they might be gone for a day, they might be gone for a week or 1 month or even longer. And you always need to be adapting, right? And I think that's the biggest limitation. I wouldn't say limitation. I think it's just an obstacle that you need to overcome. And for that, you need to connect. It helps certainly to have people on a global network. So you know that I have people here and I have people there. So for example, I recently was in Mexico and I stayed a weekend in Mexico City. I was by myself. I was doing a kind of layover before my flight. And yeah, my blood sugar was so hard to control that I straight up went to start just eating salads, like the McDonald's thing I just referred. And I was quite sad because I was just living the experience by myself. And I reached out to other people that I knew in Mexico with diabetes, and that really helped because they were very eager to provide suggestions, typical dishes that could be good. And it really helps to feel like, hey, if I actually have a problem, being it food, health, or even just the chat, you have someone there, someone that you don't have nothing in common except having the same condition. But it's the beauty of it is that you can actually grow a relationship with this base, but it can be way more than this. So there are limitations, but there are a lot of other pushing aspects that make you overcome the obstacles.
Do you have a moment or history of your diabetes that you would like to share?
Yeah, I would like to share too because I'm against following the rules and I like to speak as well. I think the first is a overall moment. I think it's really important to see this. So I'm an engineer. I'm a computer science engineer, and I also have some management masters. And I truly feel like I'm a more pragmatic person and a more numbers-oriented person because of diabetes, right? So I grew up, like most of us, doing calculations, doing predictions, forecastings, all these types of things that you can actually apply in the financial, in the engineering world. And it's truly remarkable how much you can learn from managing something which is as complex as the advanced courses in college. And you do this every day, every hour, sometimes every minute. So this idea that I reflected a couple of years back, it's just amazing how diabetes as something that lives with you actually impacts your life, but it doesn't impact in the way that people say, like you're gonna die early. That's a possibility, but I'm not a medical person. I'm not gonna discuss that. But it really steers your life into certain directions. And it's interesting how it can actually be a pusher to make you think, all right, I can actually do this. This is not as complicated. I do this all the time with my sugar levels. I do this all the time with resource management, something like this. And I think that's really a truly remarkable thought. And the second moment, I think it's a more singular point in time, and it's really relevant because it's somehow recent. So a couple of months back, I went out for a run with a friend of mine, and after the run, he looked at my ankle and he said, "Hey, you have a spot there, like a big bruise." And okay, I thought, okay, it's a bruise, but it didn't felt like it. Like I touched, no reaction. And after 2-3 weeks, it stayed there. So I was like, okay, so this is not a bruise. This might be a skin spot. So I went to the doctor to see it, and the doctor just said, "Hey, that's dermatitis. It's a normal thing. Whatever, you have that forever." Um, and it's highly related to diabetes, or could be highly related to diabetes, like everything. So if you eventually have the sad event of dying from being run over by a car, might be related to diabetes. It's always what we have, and yeah, that really sunk in and made me feel, all right, diabetes is actually real. This actually has consequences, and this actually has some impacts, and all the stories I've heard actually are real. You actually have complications from this. And that really made me feel sad. I was like counting my days. I actually almost put a calendar thinking, oh my God, I have like 800 more days. No, I'm just joking, but yeah, just accepted it and lived with it ever since. A couple of weeks back, I think 2 or 3 weeks back, I was doing a session on physiotherapy for another unrelated thing, and I looked at my ankle for the first time in like months, and I didn't have the spot, so the spot was gone. So the idea here is, it really made me think about diabetes and accepting all the stories and all the knowledge that is provided, but at the same time, we need to think that each of us has their own stories and their own paths, and it's not just because it happened to X or Y that will happen to us as well. And we need to be clear on that. We need to be clear that we are in charge of our own lives, and that what we do out of our lives is what we can do, and we should do the most out of it, with or without diabetes. So I think that's those two moments are the best ones that I would use, and to describe the overall roller coaster of emotions that diabetes brings you.
What was your personal power secret to keep on and fight?
Well, that's easy. Just the will to live, right? Somehow we get burned out every couple of months, weeks, days, seconds, depending on the circumstance. And yeah, it's hard when you go to bed and, hey, I'm so tired. I just had this full day, and then I get home and I'm low. I can't sleep low, or I'm high. Now I need to give out a couple of units, but will it work? I don't know. So I think it's really a demanding thing, and you need to have two types of motivation, right? You need to have the internal and the external. Some people value one more than the other, and that's okay. I always felt like the internal was enough. So growing up, I never shared about diabetes. I had this just basically the desire of, I want to be okay, I want to make it work. And I think I was motivated not internally, but actually externally, because I was doing my best to show that I was a normal person and that I complied with society, and that I'm not gonna I use pens. I don't have a pump right now, but I never had a pump until now, and I will not just pull up my pen and give out some units in the street because I don't want to be that guy, or I don't want to be the guy that leaves to give out insulin before the meal because I don't want to be that guy. And in the end, I just did the normal, again, quotes, life. And I thought, I'm doing this for myself. But no, I was doing this for other people. And that's, in my perspective, is the external motivation that really doesn't help you. Right now, I feel like I have the internal, which is I actually want to live better. So even though I don't need to correct a certain number, I will correct it anyway, because it benefits my life in 30 years if I don't get hit by a storm or a lightning. So that's the internal one, but also the external one. The external, as in, I don't seek the validation of my peers. I do connect with my peers so I can help them. And it's quite important to say that I'm not helping anyone by saying you should give 4 or 5 units. That's your own head, and you have algorithms to do that if you need. It's really just hearing the experiences and understanding when somebody is frustrated by not sleeping that much, or eating something 2 days in a row and the second day has a higher peak than the day before. It's like, oh my God, it's the same amount of food. How can it be different? It's basically, the motivation is basically being able to put myself 100% for another person and help them when 1 + 1 = 3 and not equals 2 as you were expecting to. So I think that's the biggest motivation, is feeling good, but doing good as well.
What is your dream for the future of diabetes?
I think diabetes management has come a long way. Obviously, I think we all would like a cure. It's not up to me to discuss the feasibility or the likelihood of that happening, but we have a lot of the cure can come in a lot of different forms. And I think the one that we see the most is the miracle of technology, right? Looking back, when I started doing this crazy life of diabetes, I had to prick my own finger 5 times per day, average, sometimes 3, sometimes 10. And I was getting probably not so accurate numbers 3 times per day, and I was acting on it. And now we have a flood of data. We have continuous monitors for the ones that actually have access to it, and that's a struggle that we should all be empathetic and support, to have the access for everyone there. But it really came a long way. Now I have a pen that actually tells me when was the last time I gave out certain amount of units, and I can just have the peace of mind of, yeah, I don't need to remember what I had for lunch, what I was wearing yesterday, what's my father's name, and what was the amount of units I gave. So I can actually just clear my mind out of that. And like any good computer, if you save some space, you get better performance. So we can actually allocate that space, that mind space, for something that you actually like. For example, what's the dog I'm gonna get? It's actually a good question for you to have on the top of mind. So I think the future for diabetes, it's actually a self-managed system that you don't have the pancreas, but it's not the pump neither. It's basically some smart way of, actually, you just need to put the insulin in you, and it can actually be reactive, right? So my dream, and I'm saying the dream on purpose, I don't know the concept or the feasibility of it, but it's actually to have some smart molecule that can be within you and actually activate by itself on certain conditions. So I think that's not the cure, but it's as good as the cure, in a way that it's on your own body. It's not attached to you. It's not on your pocket, and it's out of your sight and your mind. And that, for me, is the cure, and it's enough to live.
Tell us something about your podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and also taking the opportunity to congratulate you and for the team here for listening, participating, and actually organizing these events and these initiatives, which always benefit the community. So I started the podcast with a simple idea, right? I was active as a student within my students' union. I was a representative for 6 years, and when I finished college, I was like, I feel empty inside me. And I thought, I actually never connected with the diabetes community. I only live diabetes as myself. And I saw it as a good opportunity to pivot the representative skills into this community. And at the time, I thought, I'm not going to do a mega project. I just want to give people the same space I was looking for. I just wanted to give them a space where they could speak about themselves and not be the heroes or the huge achievements people that we often hear about. So, for example, it's easy to hear about the people that pull off amazing achievements in sports, because sports is hard and it's even hard with diabetes. But it's also an achievement if you have a career that you are proud of and that you made with diabetes. That's also a very big achievement to have your family with diabetes, to give birth to a child, to do even getting out of bed with diabetes can be an achievement some days. And that's a bit of the motto. Let's think about a simple way of getting a safe space where people can share their achievements doing simple things. And then the podcast was a good idea. The idea was to bring ordinary people to speak about their ordinary lives. Like I said, real stories from real people. And it was actually a better and it was more successful than I actually thought. It gathered a lot of interest both from the participation and the audience side. People actually wanted to share their stories, and I liked how, again, diabetes was the base. So we all got connected because we were working, we had or we were living with diabetes. But it grew into something more beautiful. It grew into people sharing achievements and showing that they are interesting outside of diabetes. And we ended up with episodes of having people, hey, yeah, I live with diabetes, you know that's our common point. But have you heard about neuroscience? Have you heard about politics? Have you heard about archaeology? So we explored so many topics because people in their ordinary lives would never speak about themselves in that way. But given the safe space, they were able to just think, hey, I actually matter. I actually am successful. I actually do have a space in this world for me. And I think that was the goal. That was not the goal, but it's where we got to, and I'm very proud of that.
What message would you like to leave? What is your conclusion?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for listening to the episode. I think it's important to think that it's easy to speak about diabetes. It's easy to hear about diabetes, but it's actually not. There's a lot of things that go on our subconscious when we hear about this thing that actually creates a lot of stress for us. So I think it's good that people can hear and take the initiative, not only of recording, participating, but also promoting these initiatives by just being the audience. And the second is a bit of a staple message that I already have, which is, I think the difference between a person with diabetes and a normal person, again, normal in quotes, is that everybody has bad days. We just have charts and graphs that show that. So the next time things seem like they are going bad, that you're getting to the vicious cycle of it's going down, it's going up, I think that other people also have that. We just have some records and almost like a diary to show that. So be grateful because they don't know what's going on. At least we know.
Are you high? Are you low? Hang on there, you aren't alone. Here we come, here we go, the youth around the globe.
DYouth thanks you for receiving this episode of Diabetes Daily. We hope you like it. Thank you for your support. If you feel like sharing your own story, check out our show notes on how you can do so. Until next week, we wish you good blood sugar.